Hi, it's David from Life with Parkinson's. If you're new here, welcome. We hope you'll consider subscribing and also check out our website at lifewithparkinsons.ca for more information about this channel and our sponsors. And to everybody else, thank you for keeping up with all of our videos and supporting us. We look forward to interacting with you every week. It's such an honor to do this and to be here and to share our journey with you. I don't know why, but for some reason, I'm so nervous and excited to talk about dyskinesia, a symptom that I find really annoying and bothersome when it comes on. It's not happening right now, but hey, maybe it will in a little bit. You never know. When you boil it right down, dyskinesia is just a blanket term to describe the involuntary movements that happen from the side effect of the levodopa. No one really knows why or how it happens. They don't understand that. It's such a complex thing. Basically, a side effect of levodopa over time are movements kind of like this. I'll try and do my best to mimic them. Kind of like a writhing. Here's a good one. Where your head bobs. I'm probably butchering it, but it's something like that. And I know I'm joking about it here, but to some people, it's not a joke. Like I've got a friend who lives nearby. Oh, right. And I should do a plug for the Peachland Parkinson support group. If you're in my area, West Bank, West Kelowna, Peachland, or like Summerland area, we've got once a month. We have a Parkinson support group in person. If you'd like to come, send me an email at info@lifewithparkinsons.ca. We would love to have you. Back to the episode. And like I was saying, the people I know with really bad dyskinesia, like it is like borderline traumatic for some of them. It's so bad for them, and my heart just goes out to them. I honestly wish there was something I could do to help them. In the description below, you'll find a list of all the resources that we have accessed for this episode. Just so you know where our facts are coming from, please feel free to check them out. I feel that sometimes our culture tries to avoid anxiety surrounding illnesses by blaming the person for the illness in a way that they caused it themselves. As human beings, I feel all of us are curious sometimes about kind of like how things work and why things are the way they are. And also as human beings, I believe that we all ask the question of why. Why is this chronic illness happening to me? I don't deserve it. But the causes of many illnesses and also the symptoms that come along with those illnesses are largely unknown. And Parkinson's definitely falls into that category, as the experts are open and honest about the fact that, for the most part, they don't know what causes Parkinson's disease. And in the case of dyskinesia, they know it happens. Like we all know it happens. Like most of us will have the symptom at some time in our journey with Parkinson's, especially if we're taking L-DOPA, levodopa, carbidopa. But why the dyskinesia affects us the way that they do, they don't really know why. It's just that it happens. And the lack of a simple explanation as to why it's happening, I feel, puts that symptom into the question of why does it happen? What causes it? What can we blame it on? Psychology Today put out an article called Self-Blame in Chronic Illness. It's a really good read. I encourage you to check it out. They made a lot of good points that I'm kind of highlighting on. And I also see that in myself, the blame game. I really do see the blame game in myself, especially when I look back over a number of years. When you have more time and you're semi-retired and you're just making YouTube videos for a living, you have a lot of extra time to go back and analyze situations and try and figure out how you should blame yourself for them going wrong, which is not a good thing to do. David, stop it. Basically, dyskinesia breaks down into two kind of subtypes of dyskinesias. One is peak dose dyskinesia, I'm going to describe L-DOPA kind of like a rolling, like a wave system almost, like it's got highs and lows. I've always called them peaks and valleys of. So basically, the peak dose dyskinesia happens when your meds are at their highest, like an hour or two after taking them. So then the movements come on, but then they wear off as the dyskinesia kind of hits the valley. And that's where the diphasic dyskinesia is what they call it happens. So it kind of happens when you're going off and you're kind of rebounding at the bottom, and then as you're going back up again, then it'll start up again. So we're going to talk about the diphasic dyskinesia in the next section. But in this section, we're just going to talk about the peak dose dyskinesia. Peak dose dyskinesia for me has usually happened when I feel I'm mostly over medicated. I'm kind of like there, but I'm not like all the way there. I'll get it throughout the day. I'll get it if I'm tired, I'm stressed. Funnily enough, I'll get it sometimes when I'm eating. I'll be fine. And then I'll sit down to eat a meal, have like a bowl of cereal or whatever, and I'm like moving all over the place. And then I finish eating and I stop. Bad nutrition choices like coffee, I'll bring it on, sugars. So it's kind of something that's always there and I'm wary of. And I try and keep it down to as low as I can, the dyskinesia, because I don't like the writhing movements, hitting my head on the wall or my head going around and giving myself a crank in the neck. That hurts a lot. I don't want to do that anymore. So I try and avoid it as much as possible. When I was taking my dopamine agonist, Movapo, that's when the dyskinesia got really bad. Because I was taking like 3 or 4 shots a day of it, and by the time I was around to the 4th shot, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't handle another round of dyskinesia. And I did ask my neurologist, and no, it does not count as exercise. I feel that sometimes our culture looks for where should we place the blame for the situation. And put your hand up if you've done that. Put your hand up. Sing my song, butterflies fly away. If you've done that before, trying to find blame for something that's happening in your Parkinson's journey. Perhaps a new symptom's come up. Maybe there's a new tremor and you're trying to figure out why it's happened. If we find a reason, why do we always feel better? Haley and I did that with our daughter when she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 8 years old, because her sugars were always up and down all over the place because she was so young and active, early prime of life. But we always had to find out why her sugars were high or why her sugars were low. And when we did find that reason and we were able to justify it, we always felt a little bit better. So why do we do that with our illnesses? I do it with Parkinson's disease. If I feel like a new symptom coming on, I'm always trying to analyze it and find the answer. And I'm not always able to. I just feel that the culture we live in has a bit of a surrounding aura like that about it. Always trying to figure out the blame. So if they can't figure out the blame, then they go to the last resort, which is, the person who's sick. And then it becomes our fault. And that, for me, just spikes my anxiety up. Like, phew, there goes my anxiety. Like, when did it become my fault when I was sick? When did it become my fault that I got Parkinson's disease or Felicia got diabetes? When did it become our fault? People who are sick may internalize their self-blame, and then that self-blame turns into self-shame, which brings on a large amount of emotional distress. Okay, like I was saying earlier, diphasic dyskinesia kind of happens when you're kind of sinking off your high, off your peak, when you're passing the point of where the concentration of levodopa in your body is getting very low, and then kind of happens again as you're rebounding up, trying to get to the next peak. So it's kind of like, it's almost like when you're playing that operation game and you're trying to get like the thigh bone out or something, and you hit the wall and it's like, bzzz. That's kind of how the diphasic dyskinesia for me, it's like quick and sudden, sometimes violent, but not like the peak dose dyskinesia. It's not as violent as that, but it just kind of comes on for a minute or two and then goes away. Like when you're coming down to that valley and your levodopa is wearing off, your body kind of stresses out a little bit. For me, I get a little nervous or anxiety, and then it kind of happens again as you're coming up. So I find it sudden, quick. It can be over quickly, semi-violent, but not like the peak dose dyskinesia. With the blame game involved, when we're not able to control our dyskinesia, I feel that it kind of feels like we're losing control of our lives a little bit, like we're losing control of our health. When there were times that we couldn't keep up with Felicia's type 1 diabetes, Haley and I felt inadequate as parents, like we were letting her down, like we should be able to figure this out, right? It's not rocket science, it's not chemistry class. Once you figured out the ins and outs and the math of the diabetes and the insulin, it wasn't so difficult because you just bring in the carbs, apply it to the insulin and then the different rates, carb to ratio rates and basal rates. For me, it was very easy to figure out. I know for some people it's harder. Math just comes easy to me in that way. But it was like when I couldn't figure it out, I was like being a bad parent. Like I was letting my daughter down. And I feel that's very similar to when we have symptoms that come on that we can't figure out with Parkinson's. It's like, why is this diphasic dyskinesia bothering me so much? Why is it so violent? Why is it so sudden? It shouldn't be that difficult. Like the peak dose dyskinesia, I shouldn't be sitting in a chair for the next 2 hours writhing around, but I feel that I'm letting myself down and I feel like I'm letting others down around me, not being able to figure this symptom out. And basically, that's how I feel. Right? As a man, I feel I should be able to do better. I should be able to deliver results. I should be able to manage this disease so my family and my wife doesn't have to figure it out. When I should be doing the other thing is bringing them in. So, yeah, I get into this self-sabotage situation, and it's very distressing and not somewhere I really actually want to be. Working through and just ditching yourself of the self-blame and self-shame is really good for your overall mental health. Have you ever been in the situation where someone just tries to explain away your illness in a single sentence so they can kind of seem like they're reaching out to you and helping you and caring for you, but in really like one or two sentences, they just make things friggin' worse? When they're like, oh, if you just do this and this and this, I saw this on whatever TV show, you'll be better. Eat the bark off the talopa tree at sunrise on the east side of the mountain in Brazil. When that happens, it's just like, don't bother with me, leave me alone. Thankfully, the experts have some tips on dealing with dyskinesia that I think can be very helpful. If you're interested in pursuing some of the medication recommendations from the experts, of course, talk to your doctor. I'm not recommending that everybody take these. These are just in a couple of the articles. So always check with your doctor and get proper medical advice. One of the things they recommend is amantadine, which can help smooth out your dyskinesia and make it not as violent. A second medication that they recommend is kind of like switching some of your instant release Cinemet over to like a controlled release. So instead of sudden peaks and valleys, you might get some rolling hills that aren't as bad. And those rolling hills might lower your dyskinesia. And I've done that, and it's helped me quite a bit. Part of my dose is like instant release, and the rest of it is controlled release. And I find that works really well for me. And the name of that controlled release medication is commonly known as Ryturi. Me, I just call it CR. I call it the instant release are the yellow pills, and the controlled release are the pink pills. Probably not a very good medical description, but that's what I like to do anyhow. Another thing that the experts recommend is looking at deep brain stimulation. That usually requires you to take less levodopa to manage your symptoms. So, obviously talk to your doctor and your surgeon about that option as well if your dyskinesia is at the point where it is unbearable. They also say poor sleep and high stress levels aggravate dyskinesia. Yes, I agree with that. If I don't get my 7 or 8 hours of sleep, I find everything is difficult throughout the day. One solution I found that's helped me deal with the dyskinesia, all by accident, and that's why I mentioned our sponsor, Rouge Care Canada, earlier on, with red light therapy products. I've definitely found that my Pro G3 red light panel has helped with my dyskinesia quite a bit. And I will put a video up here near the end of the video, just connecting you to a link where I went through the nano red light and started to have dyskinesia during the episode. So I went, great, let's see if this will take away the dyskinesia. And so I recommend having a look at this video later on. And there's a custom link in the description below that will take you to Rouge Care Canada. And if you purchase any products through that link, you will indirectly support Life with Parkinson's, and we really appreciate that. Thank you. And on their website, Rouge Care Canada has some excellent resources talking about red light therapy. So I recommend you check those out as well in helping you make a decision on whether or not purchasing one is right for you. And to wrap up our discussion about the blame game, I just feel there are certain situations in life that we just need to accept as they are. This is my own personal feeling. Because we might never get answers for the blame game questions. We might never get answers why I tend to self-sabotage or why our culture deals with the anxiety surrounding chronic illness the way it does. We may never get those answers. So my thought is we just have to accept what is as it is and carry on the best that we can and hope that others learn that the blame game is not the right thing to do. So, thank you for watching and supporting this channel. Please leave a question or a comment below. You can agree or disagree with me. I'm okay with a little bit of pushback. It can always turn into a great conversation where we learn a lot from each other. So let's continue to take this journey of Parkinson's disease together. I'll see you on the next one. Have a good day. Goodbye.